MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Reports that Kenya had agreed to introduce genetically modified maize into its food system ignited old fears and revived intense debate about the role of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, in assuring global food security. At the center of the raging debate in the past few days is the safety of GM foods. So, is GM food a monster or a tool for farming? Later on in the show, we talk about the state of climate change and the role we all need to play in the climate action. Our guest in the program was privileged to grace the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change that happened in Egypt and will enlighten us on the outcome. In addition, to sum up the mid-morning pack, we revisit the inquiry or the inquiry of government appointments. Are they done on the basis of merit or sheer loyalty? Good morning and welcome to the Mid-Morning Pack. My name is Mangicha Mola. We'll be having our co-host Paul Kagi in a short while. And thank you so much for joining us. As usual, you can give us your feedback. And the question we are asking you today, our dear viewer, is: do you support the importation of genetic modified food in the country? Do you support the importation of genetically modified foods in the country? Give us your opinion, share with us your feelings about this particular question that has actually elicited a mixed reaction in the country. And to give us your feedback, you can join us by giving us your feedback on our short SMS platform, that is 23814, and you can also catch us live on our social media pages, that is Facebook, that is MBCI TV, and also on YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. Give us your feedback and we'll be able to appreciate what your perspectives are as far as this particular discussion and this particular conversation is concerned. And today, I have on set an expert in matters agriculture and climate change. Will help us so much to unpack some of these issues that have actually caused a lot of reactions in the country. There are those who are supporting, there are those who are opposing. So where are we and what do we need to know? As a viewer also, what is your role as far as this particular conversation is concerned? And this is none else other than Dr. Kinyanjui Koimburi, an expert in agriculture and also climate change. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, karibu sana. Now, Daktari, maybe let's just start. I know later on we'll talk about the issues to do with climate change. I know you have an experience on that. You're also privileged to be in Egypt. But looking at this issue about GMO foods, what is your quick reaction about this debate?
Yes, I think before I dive into the main issue of GMOs and trying to explain the benefits or the disadvantages of it,
yes,
let me just say that I'm blaming a lot the political class who have actually now not having the scientific knowledge behind it.
Yes.
They're the ones who are giving people half-baked solutions and half-baked answers in terms of what do GMOs mean. So when you get these answers from people who are not in the scientific world,
yes,
trying to educate people what GMO means, then they end up now mudding that topic of GMOs, which has benefits, and I think it's something that is in the future that we cannot avoid.
So what you're saying is that the problem that you're actually even experiencing at the moment is the coming in of the political leaders in this entire debate.
So the issue of political leaders is that they usually use the information they get from the websites and the social medias to try to give people answers, because as I usually say, is that you don't need to have answers to every question.
Yeah.
It depends. As for me, I cannot give answers in the medical field. I'm not a medical practitioner.
Right.
So they should leave matters to do with GMOs and agriculture and climate change to the people who are concerned with it. And then they should also be consulting us. Now, they usually give answers and then they come to consult us afterwards. So it becomes a huge problem to us trying to convince the people that GMOs are good, and yet those people who came out there, they were giving it in very bad light.
There are those that would say that politicians, they also leaders in their own right, and maybe they have a role in any particular issue that maybe is actually happening in the county, and therefore maybe even in a discussion like this, maybe they also have to put in what their views are.
Yeah, it's good they have a view so that they can give the people, but I usually say the view should come from an informed position. They should have consulted somebody who is concerned with this, and then they give an informed position. When they talk about GMOs, they cause cancer and the rest, the experiment that was done way back in terms of using a mice to try to see whether it can cause cancer into the mice, what happened is that it had some, the mice that was used in the experiment, yes, it had some indications that it had some swellings that could be directed towards being carcinogenic, but afterwards it was refuted. It was actually cancelled out, where they said that the environment where that experiment was done was not conducive, it was carcinogenic on its own. So there is no conclusive evidence as up to now that we have cancer, a correlation between cancer and GMOs. It is the fear that is outside there. Remember that GMOs being introduced in the market, it will obviously create a market competition for those who have non-GMOs. So obviously the people who are in the industry of non-GMOs must come up with a story so that they beat the competition. So that's how it is. This is competition between manufacturers and those industries up there and the businessmen. But the real story is that GMOs are there, and we are with them. In fact, people should be amazed that they have been using GMOs without even knowing. Because if I give you a good example of insulin, insulin that is used to treat diabetes, earlier on they used to remove insulin from animals, but they found that the demand for insulin was too high. So we cannot be removing insulin from animals. What they decided is to now genetically modify the insulin on themselves in the laboratory and produce it in masses. So the insulin that you're using right now, they started producing it as early as 1982. So the insulin you are using right now, those who are using insulin, it is genetically modified. So there is a lot of medicines that we are talking about that are genetically modified. So it begs to differ. Why should people be afraid of genetically modified if it is in the food system? But if it is in medicine, then it's okay. All of it goes into your body. So if you don't want GMO or genetically modified crops or food, then you should also say no to GMO medicine and so many others. So GMO is there. It's only the information that people are being given is wrong, but GMOs are there, and it is to our benefit, because in African countries, we have so many countries that are using. We have around 10 or 15 that are using, with South Africa pioneering in GMO production. Sudan is doing that. So we have countries in Africa that actually engaging in GMOs. In foreign countries we have USA, we have China. And remember that right now the population, which I'll diverge into that as we move on, as what the population of the world as of right now, it has clocked 8 billion. What does the population mean in terms of us trying to make ourselves food secure?
So Daktari, if I can hear you, maybe in a nutshell, what you're saying is that as far as, because I believe the major concern that has been there, even for us as a country, is the issue of safety. From where you sit, and I know you're also an expert in this particular issue, you can assure the viewer who is watching us today that as far as the safety is concerned, genetically modified foods, there is not anything to worry about.
Genetically modified foods, they're okay. And people have to notice something in terms of genetics. In genetics, what happens is that for you to change the genes of any organisms, the genes of an organisms, they are not tampered easily when it comes to, you cannot have a gene moving or jumping from a crop to an animal, because those two are not compatible. So in terms of that, this is not possible. There is no evidence as up to now in terms of we have people who have been affected by cancer, where we can say this is a cancer-stricken person. We have countries that are using GMOs, but as much as we're saying GMOs are good, they have their own downside, which I'll be able to talk about because they're not 100%. And case studies I'll give you are case studies maybe of India and Pakistan, a few of them. But GMOs, the way we are moving, in fact, when I put it in perspective of climate change, the changing climate, the climate is changing fast, and the plants are not able to adapt as fast as the changing climate. So what we need plants that can be able to adapt to the changing climate. And the main difference between GMOs and hybrids is what we have been used to, where you plant one crop and another one, you mix them, and then you use them for the next season. That's a hybrid. But a GMO, the only difference is a GMO, it is more targeted. A hybrid is what we call you're trying to do a probability. Will it survive next year? But a GMO, you are precise. You can engineer a crop to make it survive diseases, to make it survive drought, to make it survive all these calamities. So GMOs, the only difference is it has been worked on in the laboratory. Hybrids have been worked on the ground. That's the only difference. But there is no much difference when it comes to GMOs and hybrids. The only thing is that, in fact, GMOs are considered to have more nutritional value and so many things because you can engineer them to become more nutritional advantage over the others. The only thing is that as much as they have been introduced, and you need to respect the wishes of the people, let them be labeled so that if somebody wants to buy them, then it's their own wish. Let them be labeled that you can have a crop in the market and it has a label known as GMO and then non-GMO, so that if somebody wants to go and buy, then it's their own wish. But we cannot give a conclusive answer for everybody in Kenya, and yet the others who want it.
the others who want it. I can see my co-host Kagi is right with us here on the Mid-Morning Park. Quite a raging debate, Kagi, in the country, the GMO foods.
I've listened to what Doctor is saying.
Yes.
From the last statement that he has just mentioned about that they are going, maybe we label the products, the hybrid and the GMO. You see, I think my main concern regarding to the GMO is even though we have the option either to use it or not to use it, I'm mindful of people who are illiterate, because I think where we have lost it, it's like it's a do or die. GMO is here to stay with it. But what we have lacked is we have not provided any civic education to the public regarding the GMO. You know, people are being told we are bringing GMO. Like today I was checking the newspapers and I saw we are about to receive some seedlings for the GMO. But public has not been well informed about GMO. I think what Doctor is saying and other people who are in that area is they know the details, they know the information, they are experts in that area, but on the ground, people are not aware of GMO. And of course, there must have some propagandas regarding GMO. Why don't the government, the Ministry of Agriculture, or maybe the environmentalists, take time to educate us on the GMO so that we can be able to do it willingly, right? Now, if we label these products, how about someone who is very illiterate, doesn't understand anything about GMO, right? I think that is where we are losing the mark.
So I think if I'm getting you well, that is so good. People to be enlightened, awareness to be made, but as far as the safety is concerned, because I think that is the most important thing first of all, because that is what so many people are afraid of. That is a major concern to people, that maybe when it comes, the issues of cancer and so on. But as the Daktari is saying, it's like this is just propaganda. And as the Daktari, maybe if I can hear you well, there are countries even in Africa who are already using GMO foods, and they're doing well. There's not been any issues.
Yes, we have a few. First of all, the one that started earlier in 1998 was South Africa. Started way earlier, and then the likes of now Burkina Faso and then Sudan. They started way back now in 2008, and then Kenya was it initially wanted to have this agenda way back in almost 2012, and then right now. So you see, we should be benchmarking
and in 2012, as you rightly put it, this issue was brought. It was even brought in Parliament. What were the basis for banning it? Back then in 2012.
Yes, the basis of banning it, as we're saying it, is the same theories were as the same as now. In
Yeah,
terms
yeah.
of there was no much research done on it, they needed to understand it better. This is a field people don't understand it better. And I think the fear comes from the word genetic. That word genetic, if they could remove that word genetic, then it could have another word. If they remove genetic and maybe call it maybe I don't know, advanced kind of crops or something, but the word genetic creates a lot of fear. And remember, once we talk about genetics, it goes back to my DNA. So when you tell people genetic, they think of my reproduction. If I'm going to have children, maybe they'll be affected.
Yes.
My composition. So when you talk about genetic is more scientific. We understand, those who are in the scientific world will understand what is genetics from the word what is genes. But now when you get it to the common mwananchi and tell them about genes and genetics, it creates a lot of fear. So I think it is the name of it, and also, as I've said it, being compounded by the issue of politicians, where they come up and they give information which is not well informed, not scientifically backed, and they give information outside there. In fact, there's somebody who I saw in the news saying that GMOs will cause cancer, GMOs will cause infertility, GMOs, and there is no scientific evidence and research on the same. That's what I'm saying. Some people are even saying that it will cause cancer, and the only study that was done, it was refuted that it was not right, and it is also in the public domain. So what we are saying is that it is the people who are sending the messenger. The issue is the messenger. People have issues with the messenger, not the message. Because who is selling the GMO to us? That is the issue with it.
Mangicho.
Yes.
There are people who are out there who are listening to us, and I want a little bit to break down regarding the GMO.
Sure.
We have talked about the security of our health.
Exactly.
And it's good to understand what people believe about GMO on the ground, is they have insecurity with their health. Now, Daktari, I have two issues that you need to clarify regarding the GMO. Number one, this GMO, for example, if I buy seedlings, which are GMO,
Okay.
and we have the hybrid seedling, we have the two types of seedlings, the GMO and the hybrid.
Yes.
How long will the GMO take to harvest, and how long will the hybrid take to harvest?
Yes.
The variations?
If I can come to your answer is this. The only difference is that GMOs, as I said, they usually take a short life cycle compared to hybrids. The only difference between a hybrid is when you plant one season of maize and another one, and then they mix up, you find that as you continue keeping and piling up your seeds from one season to the other, they eventually become hybrids. So GMOs, they can be engineered in two ways. We can have GMOs engineered to take advantage and produce in a short life cycle. So you have GMOs that can produce in a very short life cycle. You can have GMOs where you can harvest them 3 times in a year, as opposed to the ones that you harvest maybe 2 times in a year. So it depends, what are you targeting? Is it the time factor? Is it, do you want GMOs that can fight diseases, produce more yields in a small area?
Yeah.
So yes.
Correct. Now, let's go back there, Mangicho, because I'm concerned about the person who doesn't want to use GMO.
Yes.
And we have options. You can use it or not use it. In the month of March next year, maybe we'll start planting. We have this farmer in Uasin Gishu who has 100 acres of land. We have this other one who has 100 acres of land, and they are neighbors. The farmer A decides to plant the GMO maize. Farmer B decides to plant the hybrid maize. You know the issue of cross-pollination.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
So what happens? I think the farmer A who wants to use the GMO maize, the issue of cross-pollination that comes is going to affect farmer B who is using the hybrid. How are we going to secure this farmer B who doesn't want the GMO, want to maintain his hybrid maize?
So in other words, is it possible that we can have both the GMO system and the hybrid system
working together?
Yes.
So to answer you is this. They are safe back, we call them safe back mechanisms. The first one is this. There is that possibility of cross-pollination, which you cannot avoid. What happens is there are seedlings that have been engineered in such a way that if cross-pollination occurs, then the other plant that is supposed to maybe grow out of that cross-pollination, it will not happen. They call it termination of, it has termination of germination or something. Like when you cross-pollinate, it will not be active and viable to the other one. Secondly, there is this also the other safe back mechanism in that when you want to plant for the next season, you only go and buy seeds from them. And also for the hybrid farmers, if they want to go and plant seeds, they go and buy hybrid seeds from the agricultural societies. So that means that you should not be planting the seeds that you harvested this year again, because they have a possibility of being cross-pollinated. So that's what happens in GMOs. In fact, in GMOs, it has been patented that it is illegal. You cannot plant the seeds. If I give you seeds to grow today, you cannot harvest them and then you plant them again. It doesn't work like that. In fact, those seeds, they might have a possibility of not growing. So what happens is, once you plant, once you harvest, you go back to them, they give you a bag of seeds. So they'll be giving you GMO seeds. Also the hybrid people, they'll be going and getting hybrid seeds. So once you go, because there's a seed data bank in Kenya, you can go and get seeds. You go to the shop and say, I want a hybrid seed of maize. I want a GMO seed of maize. So what I mean is that as long as we don't plant the seeds that we have, but also if you want to plant the seeds that you have, GMOs have a safe back mechanism in that their seeds cannot actually fertilize the other hybrid seeds and cross-pollinate and get a viable one. And if they do, it will not be viable. This is a case scenario of breeding two species of animals which are different, or maybe the same. When you breed a donkey and a horse, you get a mule. So the mule, it is alive, but it cannot fertilize. It is infertile. It is okay, but it is infertile. It cannot go and sire more. So that is what is going to happen. So it's like the donkey is the GMO, and the horse is now the hybrid. When you put them together, even if they produce, that seed will not be viable.
True. Mangicho, finally, regarding this, before I forget, it's regarding the issue of the fertilizer. There has been a talk that if you are going to use the GMO products, maybe like seedlings, it is engineered in a way you can only use a specific type of fertilizer. How about that?
Let me go back to it. That's why I wanted to say that we have benefits of GMOs and disadvantages. A case scenario is India or Pakistan. In fact, there's a good story in Pakistan. They started GMOs way back. So the disadvantage of GMOs comes from where those businesses, because they're in the business of making profit, they have engineered these seeds. They cannot be produced. You have to go and buy from them. Secondly, there is this fertilizer you have to buy from them. As much as they are saying they don't use a lot of fertilizer, yes, they're not prone to diseases, but there is fertilizer that you have to buy from them. So that means that you become a slave to those people. So what happens every year in Pakistan, they used to increase the prices of those maize seedlings and fertilizers. So the business people got so much into debt with them. So in fact, you found that most of them went into depression, into stress, even killing themselves. So the problem is that we will be slaves to them. So if they decide to increase the prices of those seedlings every year in fertilizer, you'll have no option but to buy it at a higher price. So what we mean is that once this market, they have made it into a privatization market. And that's why we saw Bill Gates coming here. I think Bill Gates is one of the pioneers of GMO maize. He's invested in it a lot. So he has an interest. He's saying he's going to invest 700 billion.
Actually, I read a quote that he said that he's consumed GMO all of his life.
Yes, he said that. That's what I'm saying. He's interested in it. In fact, he has invested $7 billion or 700 billion Kenya shillings in the sector of agriculture.
Sure, which brings me to the next question, Daktari. But maybe before we go to that, I also want to read maybe a comment here. Remember, you can also give us your comment on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV. The question that we are asking you is, do you support the importation of genetically modified foods in Kenya? Do you support the importation of genetically modified foods in Kenya? Give us your reflections, your perspectives on 23814, that is our SMS platform, on Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and on YouTube, that is MBCI TV official. There is one person here called Anne Caroline Mudhoni. He's saying GMO is a no, 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 in capital letters. You know what these people bring in Africa? Do we need to remind you of HIV/AIDS virus to South Africa? Why aren't you introducing organic foods? We already have enough cancer menace to deal with. This is a no-no. I discourage our people to use. We have fertile land. Therefore, let us concentrate on how we need to breed our own. is actually adding that leave these foreigners who bring all the wrong things in Africa. Be careful. The people cannot be trusted at all. But Daktari, yes. I know this is a, is a comment that can actually be debated upon. But for those who are arguing that in Kenya we have enough food, yes. we do not need to import. Yes. In North Rift, people are actually saying that we have enough food. Why is the need to actually import if it's actually ensuring that maybe the country has enough food for the entire population? How do you look at that?
Yes, the issue of we have enough food, let me just say that we might have or we might not have, but remember that we have a problem of hoarding where people keep the crops in their silos with an intention.
And who is to blame for that? Is it the farmer who is to blame for hoarding?
I think I can blame it on the farmer and also the government, because the government has been changing the
Because
prices.
the farmer is saying I'm hoarding yes. because what I used to actually plant, yes. to actually produce yes. is quite expensive, and therefore yes. I need also to sell it yes. at a price that will be beneficial to me.
That's why I'm saying GMOs will be a benefit, because once you have GMOs, the farmers will no longer have any intention of hoarding those crops. In fact, they'll be removing them from their silos and selling them at affordable prices. But now, what happens in business is that when the demand is high and obviously the supply is low, so you see the prices go up. So what is happening is they know the demand is high and the supply, they are holding it. But once we decide to flood the market with GMOs, an option for the people.
But what Daktari will need to do to our agriculture, to our farmers, if we flood the market with the GMOs? Yet the government is actually saying that it wants to look into the plight of farmers.
I think we have, the market is huge enough. The GMOs don't need to be consumed in Kenya. We can sell it abroad. South Africa actually sold, they have actually shipped, I don't know, 10 million tons of maize or something to Kenya. You see, they're selling their GMOs to us. Okay. So the market does not need to be in Kenya. We can diversify our market to the East African community. It doesn't have to be in Kenya. We can sell it to other people. So remember, it's like having a vehicle. Now we are having electric vehicles coming in Kenya. And the people in the fossil industry, in the fuel industry, they were complaining, the oil industry. They were saying electricity is bad, these vehicles will not move fast. But you see, the market, every person has his own customer. So there are people who are using fossil fuel or fuel, and those who are using electricity. So we cannot say that we can subject our people to using one type of crop. And remember that this is all about humanity. Our population in Kenya right now, I think the last census we were around, is it 55?
I think we are not 55
million. Eh?
Yes, yes.
With that increase in population, it means that land size will reduce. The land size will reduce. So if the land size, and not any land size, agricultural land size is going to reduce. So that means that we will not be having space to plant crops. A case scenario is China, where I had a time to study and stay there for a while. In China, the population is almost 1.4 billion. They have no agricultural land. There is no space. But they are leading in terms of food production in rice. They are leading in the world, even in maize. How are they growing all these things? It's because of GMOs. They're able to use a small area like this.
And there is a possibility that we've been consuming rice from China.
We have.
And we are very much alike.
And that's what I'm saying. I think the politicians are the biggest problem, because I saw one politician say the maize, or the crops, or the rice we get from I don't know, China is plastic rice.
Even eggs.
Even eggs are plastic. That's what I'm saying.
And I have been looking for those eggs.
There are no plastic eggs. The issue of social media and creating, I'm telling you, this is an era we are living in, an era of social media and Twitter and Facebook. Anything trends, especially bad things, do trend. So what I can say is that...
But I think Daktari, maybe the fear that we also have is that even if we were to send, my director is just telling me that we need to take a short break at this particular point, but we are coming back with plenty more. Remember, still to look at is the issue of climate change, and later on we also look at government appointments. You're watching the Mid-Morning Park right here on MBC ITV. We take that short breather, coming back with plenty more.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
For this is the word of promise. At this time I will come. Romans chapter 9 verses 9. Welcome to the Kairos Youth Conference 2022, where we'll be equipped for revival starting from Monday 28th November to Friday 2nd December, hosted by Apostle John Kemani William. Guest ministers will be Reverend Naomi Kemani, Bishop Jim Mwando, Pastor T. Mwangi, Reverend Evans Chumo, and Mr. Gethenji Njogu. Guest music ministers will be Shane Allah. You are good, good forever you are. And Shayla Juma. The venue will be Kingdom Seekers Fellowship Faith Chapel from 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. daily. It will also be live on Facebook at Kingdom Seekers Fellowship Youth. It's an interdenominational meeting, free and open to all.
Rema Missionary Outreach International invites you to a 6-day annual prayer conference from November 27th to 2nd December 2022. The theme for this year's prayer conference will be Dedication to God in Prayer and Soul Winning, John 15 verses 16. Guest ministers include Bishop Ireri.
God is looking for ample Christians that depend on his power.
Prophet Mwaneki.
God wanted to reach one, to reach many.
Pastor Kamau.
Because we serve a God who quickened from the dead.
Reverend Mark Daniels.
God is saying the death of his son, that's why I have forgiven you.
And Bishop Likavu.
I am right with the Savior so that he can give me the grace for everything else.
Hosted by Apostle Andrew and Prophetess Winnie.
Glad they didn't take me anywhere else, they took me to Jesus. Take me to Jesus all the time. Take me to him.
Na kwa nini Yesu alisema jirilie? Angalia yeye mwenyewe analia kiasi ya kwamba amedevelop a stature ya kwamba ataweza ambia kifo sikufi kabla ya wakati wangu.
There will be morning devotions daily from Monday 28th November to 1st December 2022, and day sessions from Monday to Thursday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Friday 2nd December from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The prayer conference will be held at the Whispers Park in Nyeri Town along Gakeri Road. For more information, call 0726 022558. 0726 022558.
Venye umefunga mdomo ulimi wako uko wapi? Mbele, nyuma, juu, chini, katikati, upande?
Niko katikati.
Ya
mdomo.
Hey, Sule.
Ukifunga mdomo ulimi umeenda wapi? Nyuma. Naona uko na kisogo, si ndio? Hicho kisogo kwa kizungu chaitwaje? Forehead.
Hey!
Hicho kisogo kizungu chaitwaje?
Medira oblongata.
Kizokoto.
You say?
Sidi kizokoto hawa ni nini bana?
Go do fasting and prayer for 1 month.
Wewe ni Mungu. Wewe ni Mungu. Wewe ni Mungu. Wewe ni Mungu. Diabai kata mdawidi. Jame absanti wati tendoa. Chama rako. Jinda wazai tumetuia. Ukibadilisha majira. Nani asome kinyume na wewe. Wewe ni Mungu. Wewe ni Mungu. Wewe ni Mungu.
God, why now?
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Welcome back to the program, The Mid-Morning Pack, right here on MBCI TV. Thank you so much. This is your weekly show talking about current affairs, topical issues in the society, and everything in between. Today we are having an expert in agriculture and climate change, Dr. Kinyanjui Koimburi, helping us to make sense of what is happening in the country, the raging debate on genetically modified organisms or food for this particular case, and helping us also to understand where are we as a country. And actually, the question we are asking you so that we can also get your opinion on the same, your feedback and your perspectives is, do you support the importation of genetically modified food in the country? Do you support? If you do, kindly also give us just a brief of why that is your stand. If you don't, also you can tell us why you think this is not the right way or this is not the right step. And you can do that by getting into our social media page, that is Facebook MBCI TV. Drop a comment or two. Our SMS platform is 23814. You can also give us your feedback on that, and we'll be glad to also see and to also find out what is it that you are thinking about the same. Thank you, Margaret Janet. I can see on Facebook you're saying following. There's also Zeki Sextet and also JD Jerida following us on Facebook. And I'm also having my co-host Paul Kagi. Just before the break, Daktari, because even as you say that the main or maybe so long as we have a market that is neutral, a market that is fair, the Kenyan farmer is not going to actually maybe be hurt or is not actually going to suffer. But from our experience, and I know Kagi will agree with me, whenever we've heard that there is some maize being imported, wherever we've heard that there is some sugar being imported into the country, we've seen the Kenyan farmer losing a lot.
Yeah. So I think it all trickles down to the issue of corruption and transparency, and that's what we need to see. And also we need to have the government investing more in agriculture, because now the issue that we are having or facing right now, they're investing more in infrastructure and other secondary things that are not adding value to the agriculture or the food chain production. So we need to see more of value addition in the agricultural sector. And also we need to see how best we can be able to even provide storage facilities to the farmers, because most of the farmers, they are losing almost 30% or 40% of their production to lack of storage facilities. So once we provide that, then they'll have a more advantageous position of storage. I saw people in horticulture sector complaining that the flower farms are experiencing issues of drought, climate change, and all these things. But once we have storage facilities and we do value addition in the agricultural sector, then it can be an advantage. And something also I need to emphasize is that in Africa, 90% of the food we provide or produce in Africa, 90% of it is rain-fed, depends on rainfall. So that means that with the issue of climate change, you expect the food production to actually be affected. So what we're encouraging farmers is to move away from rain-fed agriculture, to move to what we call irrigation or smart agriculture that does not depend on rainfall, and also to move into GMOs, because as I was saying is that these are the two combinations that will help Africa to become food secure. Right now, our population in Africa is around 1.4 billion. And you see, with that population, it means that we cannot be able to make ourselves food secure, and you're going to have people who are malnutritioned, and issues of drought will become too much. In fact, in Turkana, it's a place we can do agriculture. I've seen Egypt and Israel, it's so arid than Turkana, and they're producing fruits in high numbers. The only thing they are doing is that they have engaged in irrigation. There's a lot of water in Turkana, not Lake Turkana, which is salty, but there's a lot of fresh water underground, the aquifers.
In that region?
Underground, yes. Underground, there's a lot of water. So once we pump that water and we create irrigation systems, Turkana can actually become what we call a food basket for Kenya. So we see we need to invest in the right way and in the right direction, and eventually we will not even be talking about GMOs. But now we're talking about GMOs because we did not invest in the agricultural sector. Now we have no option than to take GMOs because the hybrids are not adapting as fast as the changing climate.
And finally, maybe in a very short term, the GMO, do they require a lot of rainfall maybe during production?
Yes, that's what I was saying. GMOs, it depends on how you engineer them. Do you want them to survive drought?
Yes.
Do you want them to survive diseases? So it depends with your area. If you're coming from Turkana and then you go and buy seeds, they tell you what are the characteristics of your area. Is it dry? Okay. So we're going to give you a seed that does not require a lot of water. We're going to give you a seed that doesn't require a lot of diseases, is not affected by diseases. So it depends with their locality. So the seeds have been engineered specific for your area. Yes, so we have seeds that don't require a lot of water. We have seeds that produce a lot in a very short time. So it depends what do you really want.
So just to wrap up on this particular subject, because I want us to get into the climate change, and Daktari, I know you'll enlighten us on this more. But now with the kind of divided, or the kind of the divide that we are actually now seeing as far as this particular issue is concerned, how should the Kenya citizen now look at this particular issue? And remember, we really look unto our politicians to give us directions. There are those who will be maybe on the side of Azimio, there are those maybe will be on the side of Kenya Kwanza, and whatever it is that their leader will say as far as this particular subject is concerned, that is what they will consider to be final. So where do you think this will stop at?
So let me first of all say that Nakuru County, where I come from, is a food basket. First of all, it is known as a food basket, but now we are even being affected by issues of climate change. In fact, now I saw a donation, the governor giving donation of food to people, which is a food basket. So that one tells you that there is a huge crisis in Kenya. But what I want to enlighten the people is that they should not listen to politicians when it comes to getting information that requires a scientific backing. Because you cannot expect them to give you answers, and yet it's not their domain. So politicians should only constrain themselves to politics. That is legislation, oversight, that is their work. But they should not try to become a jack of all trades, trying to solve all problems so that they can become more popular by giving populist kind of views to get the likings of the people. So it all stops at one point. And we usually say that politicians are very good in terms of winning votes. It's a way of winning votes. So for me, I usually take politicians as blind people. We cannot use them as, you cannot expect a blind person to lead people who are seeing. We are the people who can be able to see scientifically. We are the eyes in the scientific world. So
because even as we speak, the there's already information that there is a ship that has already docked in Mombasa with the genetically modified maize.
Yes. So yes, as much as there is a ship or not, I cannot be able to ascertain fully yes or no. But what I can say is that let politics be put aside. Let them deal with scientists who are there, and we'll be able to give them information. In fact, I saw in Kenya we had a GMO cassava, which one of the professors came up with. That GMO cassava, which was approved, that GMO cassava has low toxicity. Remember, cassava, if you eat it, it can kill you.
True.
So there's a GMO cassava that you can eat everything, even the covers, even the roots. It will not kill you. So that's a GMO cassava. What is the benefit? It has removed the toxic element. So how bad is that? That's what I'm saying. People are complaining over what they don't know. So as long as you listen to social media and you listen to politicians, then you're lost. Just try to take time, look into the scientific world, and we will be there to give information as much as you want.
Fair enough. Daktari, you are in Egypt, and I think you came back last week on the climate conference that was happening there. Now, maybe so many Kenyans may not maybe even have really understood exactly what was happening there. Can you now give us a brief of that particular conference in the context of Kenya as far as climate change is concerned?
So thanks so much also for that question in terms of the COP. It was a 2 weeks event which started on 6th of November up to 18th of November, which was held in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, for the second time in Africa, because the first time it was held in Nairobi way back. But this is the first time in Africa we are talking about loss and damage, which is very, very important. What is COP? People don't understand what is COP. COP is a conference of parties. It's where parties, I'm talking about interested people, be it scientists and activists, who are interested in matters climate change, meeting up, providing solutions. So this COP27, the word 27 comes from, it has been held for 27 years.
27 years, okay.
Every year you give it another number. And the people who are actually presiding over as the presidents of COP, they're usually the host countries. So right now, COP27, the president of COP27 is Sameh Shukri, who is now an Egyptian. So you see it is being held there. And then 28 will be held somewhere else. So what is the advantage of this? It started way back also in 1992 when you had the UNFCCC. People settled down and discussed, why are the temperatures increasing? Why are we having floods? Why is the ice melting? So we tried to understand what is happening. And then the correlation came in, there are gases being released from carbon dioxide, which is coming from burning of trees. Carbon comes from burning of charcoal, comes from vehicles, carbon monoxide, all these carbons. Also you're having methane, which comes from landfills, animals, that is the ruminant animals that chew cud, release a lot of methane. There are a lot of gases. And also there is the CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons, which come from refrigerators, the fridge that you have. Not these ones, the new ones, the old ones. The old fridges used to produce a lot of gas. So it was phased away, it was removed from the market. The ones that we have are different. So these COP treaties have been trying to make sure that all countries come together to sign agreements that we are going to reduce our greenhouse gases emission, that is mitigation, as part of mitigation, so that everyone in the world can survive better. Now you see what we're talking about here is that the journey started way back, and I'm happy that where we are right now, almost 95% of all countries in the world have been joining and signing agreements on the COP in terms of we want to be partners. Earlier on, you were only getting 2 or 3 countries, which is not okay. But now we are having around 198 countries. In this meeting in Egypt last week, we had over 40,000 delegates and over 140 country leaders who are there. So it means that they have seen the push for it. And the only importance of this COP27 is that it was discussing matters Africa. When you look at the logo of COP27, it had the emblem of Africa on that globe. Africa, the continent, was shining. So it was talking about Africa. And the main issue is that we wanted the issue of loss and damage. That is, how can we be compensated for the pollution that all the developed nations have been doing at our expense? Because right now they are saying, we don't want anyone in the country or in the world to use coal. But remember, China, USA, Russia, and Germany, they have been using coal, and coal is what made them to become developed. Now they're telling us, don't use coal. So we are telling them, how can we become developed like you and catch up with you, and you're telling us not to use it? So what we are saying is that pay us, because you have been spoiling the air at our expense. So pay us for what you have gained all of these years from using of the coal. So that's why we are saying the loss and damage is money that has been set aside, and people who will be contributing to that money are the developed nations, not us, developed nations.
Thank you so much, Daktari. So, looking at us in Kenya, because I know this is a global issue, but it is important for us now to bring it home. How far have we been affected by the effects of climate change?
Yeah, climate change has affected Kenya in a very huge way. People started feeling the impacts of climate change as early as 2010. Because the reason being that in 2010, we started experiencing, not even 2010, we started experiencing the issues of rising water levels.
Yeah, true.
The rising water levels started coming up in 2010. And the reason being that the 10 hottest years recorded on Earth, 10 hottest, the 10 hottest years ever recorded on Earth, all of them fall between 2010 and 2022. They fall there. The hottest ever recorded on Earth, they fall between 2010 and 2022.
Yes.
So we try to understand.
This is a period we've experienced
the hottest temperatures ever on Earth. It has been between 2010 and 2022.
There were some countries which some people even dying.
People are dying because people die due to heat waves and heat strokes.
And this one can also be related with the drought?
Yes, it is. It is related to the drought. It is. So the temperatures are increasing. So that means that areas that were dry become more drier. And areas that were wet become more wetter. Because remember, we are living within a hydrological cycle. What I mean by hydrological cycle, I mean is that in our geography, when it rains in this area, it evaporates, it rains in another area. So it's a cycle. So it means that if there's a lot of evaporation in one area, the water will go and pour in another area as rainfall, as floods.
Before you continue, let me take you back a little bit.
Yeah.
There is someone there who has been hearing about climate change, the layman.
Yes, yes, yes.
Before you continue, would you mind to classify for us in a layman?
Yes.
When we hear about climate change,
yes,
what is it?
Yes, climate change, as we say, it is that it is the change in the average atmospheric temperature of a place. That is climate change, and it's usually categorized within a span of 30 to 35 years. When you take the average of 30 to 35 years of temperature, you do the average, you'll be able to understand there is climate change. But what are the evidences? Because people will not understand 30 to 35 years, and some people are maybe 22 years.
Yes.
So the evidences are there. When you look at the evidences, even if you ask your grandmothers, they'll tell you that we used to plant certain crops, now we are not. We used to harvest 10 bags of maize, now we are not. Your grandmother will tell you there used to be a river here, and this river was this big and this deep. Now it's not.
It diminished.
We actually now we are able to cross the river. Yes. They'll tell you we used to swim here.
Even
now
the
we
planting
cannot
seasons
swim.
have changed.
Planting seasons have changed. Those are signs of climate change. They'll tell you that we didn't have a lot of diseases because now diseases are there. Diseases that used to survive in cold places, in hot places, are now surviving in cold places because the cold places have become warmer. So they can tell you things to do with that. And there's another evidence, even in the fish we are harvesting. The size of the fish that people are harvesting in Lake Naivasha. Some years back, it used to be this big. But with climate change, the fish is becoming smaller and smaller. The reason being that with climate change, remember, these gases being released in the air. These gases, even you, as you're breathing in and out, you're releasing carbon. Where does that carbon go? Because you need oxygen. That's why the president is planting trees, and people are planting trees. Trees are known as carbon sinks. That is, they absorb carbon, and they give you oxygen. Another thing that helps to absorb carbon and give you oxygen is water. Water absorbs carbon. It absorbs carbon. Soils absorb carbon. There are so many things that absorb carbon. So when water absorbs carbon, it becomes acidic, because in chemistry we have carbon plus water, it becomes a weak carbonic acid. So when the water becomes acidic because of more pollution, the water becomes acidic. So the fish become discolored. You find the fish are white, the scales are white because of acidification, and the size are smaller because the environment is unconducive, stunted growth. So those are the evidences of climate change which are outside there. That people have been experiencing.
So Dr. as you look at it in our context here in Kenya, so how much is it that maybe we as a country have done maybe to actually cause the climate change? How much have we contributed, or is this a matter that we squarely blame maybe to other countries, especially maybe the West?
Yes, we blame it wholly on the West, because Africa contributes 3% to the greenhouse gases pollution. Only 3%. The whole of Africa will contribute 3%. 97% is contributed by developed nations. So we only contribute 3. But as much as we contribute 3, you have to remember that the effects of climate change are local. The causes of climate change are local, but the effects are global. So that means that the problem that is the person who is causing pollution in USA, we are going to feel it here in Africa. So it means that as much as we are contributing 3%, we have no option but to encourage them to change. In Kenya, we experienced a lot of losses. Remember last year, we lost around 2 million cattle were lost in the areas of arid areas. That amounts to around 1.5 billion US dollars. That's the amount of money we lost.
I believe there is another very big figure this year again.
Yes, there's another. I have not even talked about people who have lost houses and schools due to the flooding of the lakes. There's a lot of money lost because of climate change. The only thing we need to do before I go into that, the causes of, as you are talking about, there's a question you asked me about causes of climate change. The causes of climate change are 2. We have natural causes, natural causes, and also which we usually call naturogenic causes, and also we have anthropogenic causes, that is human causes. Human causes are 1, burning of wood, the use of fossil fuel, gari za mafuta, the burning of plastics, all these things, they cause greenhouse gases being released and causing climate change. Natural causes, they are caused by volcanic activities. When there's volcanism, it releases certain gases which act as greenhouse gases. So what do all these gases do on Earth? These gases form a blanket on Earth. Once they form a blanket, it insulates the heat. So the heat comes in, But once it comes in, it bounces, it doesn't bounce back.
Okay.
So the heat is actually contained. It's like when you're boiling water. When you boil water on a sufuria and you boil water on a sufuria and it is covered with a lid, which among the two will boil faster? So it is the one that is covered.
Yes.
The one that's covered will boil faster.
True.
So that is what is happening on Earth. We are putting a lid on top. The lid is the greenhouse gases. So that means that we are going to boil more as opposed to, we are going to feel the heat more compared to as it was open.
Yeah.
So that is what is happening to greenhouse gases. We are trying to reduce it so that we remove that lid from the sufuria, and then we'll not be feeling the heat as much as we feel. In fact, there's an estimation that has been put that if we don't solve the issue of climate change, Africa is estimated to experience a loss of 550 billion US dollars by 2030, and a loss of $1 trillion by 2050.
And you know, Dr. there is always the notion that the West, some of these European countries have always not had goodwill for Africa. And therefore, from the conference that you attended, how is it that they responded to this?
Yes, they responded positively, but we had a very huge problem for the first, let me say 2 weeks, because the agreement came on Saturday, Sunday, after we left. The reason being that the issue of loss and damage, they didn't want it. They had only 3 topics: mitigation, adaptation, and finance. The issue of loss and damage, they didn't want it, because if you accept it, it means that I have accepted my mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm ready to pay. Nobody, if you accept your mistakes even in court,
they don't want to hear anything about compensation.
Yes. Compensation means that you have accepted, you have polluted, so pay. So they don't want to accept, even in court. If you accept, you become liable. Exactly. So they didn't want to accept it. So that's why they changed the name to loss and damage. Initially, it was being known as compensation. They didn't want it. This debate started in 2007 during COP13, the issue of compensation. They didn't want that topic. So it has been delayed for 27, how many years? From 2007 up to now. Is it 27? Is it 20? So almost 20 something years. Almost, is it 2017? I don't know. 2007 up to now. They have actually almost 15 years. It was 15 years. They have delayed that topic for 15 years. 15 years debate. So they agreed it on the last day, but it was a very hectic thing. They agreed they're going to set up a fund known as loss and damage. I'm happy Denmark was the first country to contribute $13 million US into that fund. Okay. We have other countries that have pledged. We have countries like Germany, we have Australia, we have France, we have USA. They have pledged to put money into that kitty. So what is the benefit of that money? That money will be of benefit to developing nations, not Africa, developing. Remember, we have developing nations that are not in Africa, that are still developing. We have Indonesia, it's still developing. It's not in Africa. So that money is for developing nations that have been affected by climate change. So that money, we can access it, but not going there and asking for it. Okay. You must write a proposal to them, how you're going to use that money, and that is the problem African countries are having. Accountability is a problem. They don't want to be accountable for the money. You cannot just go and ask for $1 billion and not showing what you're going to do with it. Yes. So that's the problem they were talking about. But I'm very sure that the countries that are going to access this money are countries that are going to have up-to-board monitoring and evaluation mechanism, and they are transparent in their usage in terms of minimizing corruption. So the money is outside there. It is just a matter of fact. In fact, people who are in the tree nursery business, they are going to have a lot of business. Because right now the president has said he's going to plant 5 billion trees by 2027 and 10 billion trees, I don't know, in the next 10 years. So that means that people who are selling trees, they should target the county governments and national governments to sell those tree seedlings to them.
Sure. Thank you so much, Daktari. And actually, that is the other point that I wanted us to look into, because I know as a country, the government has already indicated what it wants to do. And I know Kagi will also chip in on these. Now that we have that particular action, or we have that particular step that the president has already taken, the planting of trees into billions of these seedlings. Now, looking at this particular subject and how it is that it is also related globally, are the actions that maybe we are just going to take as a country enough? How much do we depend on these other countries for us actually to be able to fight the effects of climate change?
So yes, we still depend on the developed nations, because remember, in fighting climate change, we are still not at par with them. They have a lot of knowledge and skills in fighting climate change, especially in the scientific way. Because how to solve climate change? We have two ways of solving climate change. We can either use nature-based solutions or scientifically based solutions. Nature-based solutions are usually cheaper, that is planting of trees, that is nature-based. Nature, solutions from nature, controlling pollution, those are nature-based solutions. But scientifically based solutions, they're expensive and they are quick and they're outside there. Like in Saudi Arabia, they're using an activity known as cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is where you put an aeroplane, it goes in the clouds, it injects electric currents in the clouds, and the clouds start to rain. You see, they can make clouds to rain. They can create rainfall in areas that do not have rainfall, which is expensive. We have another machine in India which helps to absorb carbon. It's known as a carbon sequester. That machine is like a vacuum cleaner. It absorbs carbon and releases oxygen. So you see, it does the work of millions of trees by absorbing carbon, releasing oxygen.
And with this kind of technology, even as we talk about climate change, it could be that those countries in the West, they've not actually been affected as maybe we are in the country, because we have the measures to mitigate the same.
Yeah, the only thing is that they have been affected. Every country has been affected by climate change, even USA. Because remember, the only thing they have is what we call early warning systems. They have very good early warning systems. That's what they have. They can inform people and tell them, we are going to have floods in the next 10 days. In Kenya, we don't have early warning systems. We don't have that. The only early warning system we have in Kenya is if you hear your neighbor screaming, and then now you realize floods are here. But in reality, we don't have early warning system to tell people move away. So this money, we are trying to see how also we can invest it in early warning systems, giving people information on mobile phones and all these things. People get information. In fact, people nowadays are now believing in meteorological services. People didn't used to believe in meteorological services. They were being told tomorrow is going to rain, and it doesn't. So people lost faith in it.
Very true.
So we need to have information that is believable, and people will be able to trust them, so that we can have that kind of trust in them. But in the future, what I'm saying is that we are going to depend on the scientific world or the developed nations, because we are still not there. Yes, we might be having the manpower, but you don't have also the resources are very important. So we need them, and we are going to need them. Look at Elon Musk. He came up with vehicles that use electricity. So you see, that is one thing he has done to make us move away from the dependency of fossil fuel. You see, we still depend on them. In Kenya, I've seen them having those efforts. We had the BRT system in Nairobi. I don't know if it can happen in Nakuru, but the town, the way it has been formatted, is not planning. There's poor planning, urban planning. But in Nairobi, you have the BRT system, which is working in Tanzania and in Rwanda. So the BRT system can help to reduce traffic jams, because during traffic jams, that is when we have high pollution levels. So BRT system is one. Also, I've seen the introduction of electric motorcycles in Kenya. I've seen them. I've seen electric vehicles in Kenya, but there are not so many, there are few. So we need to have electric vehicles, electric motorcycles, and also the government should reduce taxes on LPG gases. LPG gas, because right now even the 6 kg gas, I think it goes for 1,500, and it used to go for 600 shillings. So you cannot tell people to move away from burning coal and charcoal, and yet the LPG gas is 1,500. So it is cheaper to use charcoal than LPG gas. So they should reduce taxes also on electricity. Electricity right now is very expensive. So you don't expect people to use electric vehicles. Charging electric vehicle will be more expensive than even buying fuel. So that's what I'm saying. Also, we need to have policies to see how best we can be able to make the environment conducive for people. The other thing also is the solar panels. I have seen the government had removed taxes on solar panels, solar appliances, but now they came up with another law that for you to engage in solar business, you must have a license. You must be somebody who had there's a license you need to have to engage in solar appliances installation. You don't need that. As long as you can be able to install it and use it, it doesn't have to have that harm. But now they're putting all these laws, all these limitations, and they are making the environment unconducive just because they are seeing they are not benefiting. And remember, most of the campaigns, be it in USA and in Kenya, and even in Africa, most of the people who are financing politicians, they are in the business of fossil fuel and oil. So if they are financing presidential candidates in campaigns by giving them millions and they are selling oil, how do you expect that person who has been funded by that money, black money, to actually say we're going to put a law to stop the use of coal and the stop of oil? It's not possible.
It's very hard.
It is not very hard.
I think, Mangicho, one issue with the Daktari regarding the president's activities, planting trees, is a good directive. But I was looking at how far we have come regarding the planting of trees. It is not the first time. I remember during Moi's era, it was very aggressive. During Kibaki's era, it was very aggressive. Uhuru's era, now Ruto's era. Now, I don't know, Daktari, maybe you have been following this up. Where have we been going wrong in terms of planting trees? Because following all these years, I was expecting maybe when I'm traveling from Nakuru to maybe Eldoret or Nairobi or going to Turkana, I could see a serious change in terms of planting trees.
It is not like something that is coming up for the very first time.
No.
It's not something that we're going to experience for the first time.
And there is no tangible evidence that planting trees has been effective.
Yes.
Where have we been going wrong?
So,
and what should we do?
Yeah, when you look at the 4 presidents we had from Jomo Kenyatta going up to where we are right now, the 5th, when you look at all this, when Jomo Kenyatta took over the country, the forest cover was around 13–14%. During the era of Moi, it dropped. During the era of Kibaki, it increased again, and then right now it's also increasing. We are now actually going up to 12%, and we took the country at around 13%. So you see, during the era of Moi, it dropped. The reason being that during the era of Moi, they introduced what we call Shamba system, where people were given the opportunity to go to the plantations to plant. Shamba system.
Yes.
They thought it could work. It could not. And then I saw them introducing it again. I don't know, they wanted to introduce it again or not, through another system known as PELIS, where you have plantation establishment, livelihood improvement systems, where it's just a name of Shamba system.
Yeah.
But the downside is that that's where now we had deforestation, because the people who are planting, they were told, plant your crops and the trees in between. So when the trees grow, you move away.
Yes.
Are you seeing that? But what they did is that when they are planting the crops and the trees which are there, they put salt on those trees. So when you put salt on the trees will not grow. So you end up staying in that land for 50 years and you are supposed to move away in 5 years. Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Because when the KFS come and they see, oh, the trees are growing, they leave you.
But they are stunted.
But now there's stunted growth because you have put salt. You have put salt on the tree seedlings. So what I'm saying is that there is a lot of unpolitical goodwill in this way. And that's why I've seen the deputy president saying that he wanted to introduce PELIS, Shamba system. It cannot work. It didn't work and it can't work. So the trees, they have had devastating effects, because you are asking the point of, even if the trees have reduced, what is the problem? The problem is this. Even the rising water levels we are seeing right now in the Mau Forest. The Mau Forest is one of the catchment areas. So when the trees are cut, remember the soil erosion. The water goes into the lakes. That is the issue we have in Lake Nakuru. The soil goes into the lakes, Nakuru, Naivasha, and everywhere. So when it rains, even the water that is there, the water overspills. Not it overspills because of more water, it overspills because
of the soil.
The soil. A case scenario is, remember the politicians, the few leaders, there's a helicopter which crashed in Lake Nakuru some years back. That helicopter, when it crashed, they didn't even find the bodies or parts of the helicopter because they were buried inside the lake. It fell on the lake, but because of the sand, they became buried.
Even the passengers are on board.
Yes, they were buried inside the sand. So you see, it became a problem. You cannot go dive in the water and then now you're trying to dig again to find them because they were buried inside. Because the soil that is in that lake, the silt, is too much. So the water spills. Even if it rains a small amount, it spills. So the only way to solve that problem, which is very expensive, is an activity known as dredging. Dredging is where you come up with the machines to remove the soil from that lake so that the lake can now have more space and the water will go back. That dredging activity has been done in Lake Herman. Lake Herman is in USA, but it is very expensive. Very, very expensive. Kenya cannot do that. So that's why you see the problem of Lake So rises.
Yeah, the problem comes from the Mau forest.
Mau forest, because this is the catchment area.
Yeah.
No, Mau and other catchment areas, once you cut the trees, the soil goes directly. Remember, these trees they help to reduce soil erosion, and also they help to increase what we call groundwater seepage. That is, when the trees are there, they make that water not to flow very quickly. The water seeps down. But when there is no cover on the land, there is no time for water to seep. It goes on top. It just flows.
Yeah. I think it's the same problem with lakes in Baringo.
Yes, all of them.
I went to
Bogoria.
Lake Solai, which was just a small lake.
It's the same.
Now the water is moving towards residential areas.
They are the same. I had an opportunity I was in a task force that was looking into the rise in water levels. I got an opportunity to travel all the lakes, from Lake Turkana to Lake Victoria. So I saw all of the lakes, even Lake Wasenyiro, Turkana, Baringo, Bogoria, Victoria is the same also. All the lakes, Solai, Naivasha, Nakuru, all of them, they experience the same. So it is the same scenario. It is the soil that is in the lakes. And the reason is deforestation.
Is there any hope that we are going to regain?
Yes, there is hope. The only hope is people to be evicted from Mau forest and trees to continue being planted in Mau forest, so that rain that comes in the future will get time to be soaked into the ground, because you cannot engage the activity of dredging. Dredging is too expensive to remove that soil.
And can we be able to have an artificial forest in our country?
Artificial in terms of you plant it in a place.
We look for a place which is not. It's just it's not government. It's not public.
We plant
create a certain forest in some areas, maybe.
Yes, it is possible, and that is what we call afforestation or reforestation, because when you talk about afforestation, it's planting in areas where there were no trees. Reforestation is planting trees where they were initially cut down. So what we're talking about is afforestation, which is possible. So, and that's what the government is doing.
I think it can help us so much.
It can help. It can help.
And actually, Dr. In relation to that, what do you think, therefore, because I remember even initially you had said that there is a lot of demand for land, actually even for residential purposes, and so many people are actually getting around in the country looking for space so that they can actually build their homes. How much therefore do we have? Is it really enough for us to actually have these trees?
Land is becoming a problem, and the only solution is this. We can do what we call use green building solutions. Green building solutions is whereby we make our buildings green. So every building, like this one, at the top of the building, I think we have somewhere at the rooftop, you plant vegetation. That's what people do. So you plant vegetation on all the buildings, on top of the buildings, because remember that building, there were trees there for you to put that building. So the only thing you can do, just put up your building, but plant the vegetation on top, so it remains the same. So we can do greening of buildings, that's one way. To ensure that as much as land is reducing, we keep our green spaces alive. Remember that the advantages of planting trees are this. Gabon has a forest cover of 89%.
Wow.
Gabon has a forest cover of 89%.
And you said Kenya has?
13. Now we are at around 13%. And you compare. 89%. And the advantage is this. Gabon was paid $17 million as part of carbon credits. When you plant trees, many trees, they pay you. You are paid by carbon markets. You are paid money. So they were paid $17 million. They will be paid $17 million per year.
Per year. Okay.
That is about, I don't know how much in Kenya, 1.17 I think 1.7 billion, 1.7 billion Kenya shillings or so per year for planting trees. So as much as we're planting trees, we are going to be paid for that. And how carbon credits works is that if you're polluting, they ask you, what are you doing to cut your pollution? So a country like USA, or China, maybe they don't have land to plant trees, but they're polluting, because the top 5 polluters in the world, we have China there, we have Russia, we have USA. So they are being told, what are you doing to cut your pollutions? So they say, we are going to plant trees. And they don't have land for planting. So what they say, the recommended amount is 10%. So you see, Gabon has 89. So you do 10 minus 89, they have an excess of 79%. So they sell that 79 to other countries. They tell USA, we are going to sell 79 to you, or 10 to you, or 30. So when USA is being asked, what are you doing to reduce your carbon emissions? or a company, they say we are planting trees in Gabon. Where are the trees? They say we have planted 10% in Gabon, they are here. So you see they are paying rent to Gabon for them planting the trees for them. Because if I plant a tree in Kenya, it can absorb the carbon. It doesn't matter. It's not absorbing the carbon from Kenya because air is everywhere. So it means that tree can be absorbing carbon from USA or somebody who has done some kind of pollution in another country. So planting trees in Kenya doesn't mean that it will only help Kenya. It's not Kenya. Because it cannot contain air. You cannot say this is air for Kenya. It is going to neutralize and maybe clean the air for other countries.
Wow, such an interesting and robust conversation right here on MBCI TV and the program, The Mid-Morning Park. Thank you so much, Daktari. You've really enlightened us on matters climate change, and at least now our viewer is in a position to know where we are as a country and what each and every one of us needs to do. Seeing we are almost bringing it to a close, but Kagi, the final discussion is government appointments, merit or loyalty.
Yes.
Remember, as we are speaking, the court actually stopped. I think it was the Employment and Labor Court stopped the vetting of the principal secretaries.
Yes.
On the grounds that there was no regional balance and some other issues. And again, recently we had the IALA nominations, and there were a lot of information and there were a lot of complaints that this was just a dumping ground for those who actually lost in the last elections. Now, Daktari, when you look at how things have been done, how do you look at it in terms of how the government has actually been doing, or how the government has actually been conducting itself in terms of the appointments that we've seen so far?
Yes, thank you so much for that. And I think, let me now diverge into the political realm, because at one time I had vied for the MCA seat in Nakuru County,
yes.
Which was, I was just trying to test the waters and see what people really want.
And how did the tests
it went well. It went well because for me, the main purpose was trying to, because it was my first time in politics. So I wanted to start with the MCA seat to understand what the people, what are the people going through. And having been born, I was born here in Bondeni. Okay. So I've been born here in Bondeni. I just tried it, I wanted to understand these problems that we're experiencing, how can they be solved in a more political way by having leaders who are educated and informed. So that's the journey where I started from. And yes, it was a learning experience. I was able to understand people got to know where I'm coming from. Yes, the winner of the day took it over. I did not reach the final race. I took another route to campaign for the governor who was there initially, Governor Lee, in terms of ensuring that I was his chief campaigner and doing so many things just to see his re-election. But as I'm saying is that politics aside, 2027 also is coming. I think also I'll be on the race again, but maybe, I don't know, I'll talk to the people. There are different seats. I can decide to go for the parliamentary seat for it, or maybe other seat, but I'll be able to consult the people.
Your quick lessons, what did you learn?
The quick lessons I learned is that in politics, what you need to have is you need to have the problems of the people at fingertips. You need to understand that all the people have different problems, have different issues. And being a leader, you need to have the sense of humility and the sense of servantship. You need to serve people wholeheartedly. That's why people are asking, you are at one time a lecturer, you did all these things. Why are you going to vie for an MCA seat, which is low and it's not paying enough compared to what I'm doing? But what made me diverge into that is the will and the passion to lead the people. That's why I'm saying in 2027, which is not far away, I will be able to rethink and to rework my strategy, which now I've improved it with the people. And if they decide they want me to vie for an MP seat or another higher seat, or even the MC seat, I don't know. I'll talk to them and understand, because I believe what we don't have in Nakuru is crops of leaders that start and move upwards. All the leaders that we are having, they usually stagnate at one point or fade away and move away. If you're an MCA, you believe as staying as an MCA for 30, 40 years. If you're an MP, you want to stay there for 20, 30 years. You see, you don't have a sense of going up. In fact, even in the Bible, I think there's somewhere they're talking about the issue of you improving, and actually, we need people to have that kind of vision. You must have a vision.
They don't know when it is time to leave.
You cannot be staying somewhere. That is what we call growth.
Yes.
You must have growth.
You need to grow.
You need to have growth. So you cannot stay there. If you see somebody staying there, wanting to lead you for the next 30, 40 years, it means there's an issue. If you're a leader,
in the same position
move,
for many years.
go up, and even become the president of this Kenya at one time. So in that regard, is that the appointments that I'm seeing, these are political appointments. We cannot shy away from that. When you look at the cabinet positions, PS positions, all these positions, these are political appointments, and we cannot blame them for that. We cannot blame them because the law is clear. There is no stipulation. In fact, I don't think even a degree is required, because I saw some people who are getting these seats, they don't even have the minimum qualifications to hold such dockets. So when you give a docket to somebody who is not qualified and expect them to solve the problems, it doesn't work like that. So it's like putting a cart in front of an ox. It can't work. So
are you saying there are some people who are not qualified for the position?
Yeah, most of them they are not. In fact, even the Kenyans, it's in the public domain. People see it.
Yeah.
There are most people who are not qualified. It's only, this is what we call political kickbacks. Because I have to give you because you helped me campaign. So it is their right to be given. But they have to remember that they're not going to be serving their party. They're going to be serving all Kenyans and all taxpayers. Taxpayers, tax does not know political affiliation. So if you want to, I like the way USA does and developed nations do. They employ people on merit. If you don't have papers, you don't have papers. It's on merit. But here, it's all about psychophancy, saying that the people love me. I don't know. They put some funny things. And all these people, they have children in school. Why do you take your children to school to get degrees? And yet, you're busy outside there saying degrees are not important to get these appointments.
Yeah.
It's all about leadership. If you're a leader, then you can lead. No, it's not like that. It's about merit and papers. We saw people who are having degrees that are not there. We saw Nyambane. I think Nyambane was one of the presidential candidates sometimes back. He graduated last week or 2 weeks ago. After how many years? 26.
Yes.
After 26 years. But do you remember that when he was submitting his papers, he said he had a degree?
Yeah.
He said he had a degree.
Sure.
How comes now he has graduated? You see, all of them, they have put corruption in the educational sector, and which is a very huge harm. They're making it a very huge harm. A case scenario is in Nigeria. Students in Nigeria to get scholarships, it's very, very hard because the corruption is so high in the educational sector. For you to get scholarships, the Ministry of Education must send your papers. They must authenticate and send your papers. In Kenya, we send it directly. Like for me, I got scholarships by applying directly. I got scholarships to study in Sweden, and also I got scholarships to study in China. You see, I did not require the government, and they trust our papers. But now with corruption, it means that it will reach some years that our papers will not be recognized. We'll have to require the government to authenticate their papers for you to apply. So as much as we have corruption in Kenya, let it be in all other sectors, but not in education.
Not in education.
Because education is the only way that the poor person has to pull themselves out of poverty.
And then, Daktari, the question therefore comes, if we have quite a number of these individuals who have already maybe been given these appointments and they don't qualify for the same, and we know that the government and even the president is quoted as saying that he wants the people to deliver in the cabinet level and also at these other levels. Now, how possible, how feasible is it that they are going to deliver if they don't have the expertise, if they don't have the know-how?
It's not possible. It's not possible, and it's a big shame because the president himself is an educated scholar. It shows that he understands what education is. So for him, I could have hoped that he could have sat down and actually worked with the professionals in that field, because I don't expect to be treated by somebody who is not a doctor in the hospital. If I go to the hospital, I find the person is a farmer. It can't work. As much as you're a good leader, but you're not a professional in that field. If I want a farmer, I know where I'll go. If I want a butcher, I'll go to the butchery. If I want a barber, I'll go to the kinyozi. So you cannot mix these professions. So the problem is they're mixing them up. You find somebody's not this profession, is putting them here, putting them there. In fact, even you saw the vetting of cabinet secretaries and PSSs. There are some people who could not even be able to articulate even one word. They could not even explain themselves. They don't know what their ministry is going to do, what their ministry entails. That's what I'm saying is that I think we are going the wrong route of giving friends.
Because Daktari, I don't know, what do you think therefore should be done in the future? Because there are also those who are saying that maybe we need to look at it, we need to find out how is it that maybe you are going to get, or how we'll be getting the people maybe to fill some of these positions. There are those who are even saying whatever Parliament did was just an exercise in futility.
Yes.
Because a whole 1 week, but then everyone that was vetted actually passed.
Yes. So, yeah, it all trickles down to corruption. So corruption comes in many ways. Corruption is not about money. Corruption comes also in transparency and being above board. And I think that's why you are seeing you have so many cases also we have cases in court, 2 of them I think from Nakuru County, appointments of the CECs and CEOs.
Yes.
There are so many things.
As we speak, I think there was, they were also stopped.
Yes.
By the court, but apparently the information is that it went well, and the public was actually barred from the county assembly.
Yes, so you see those are some of the backdrops we have. As much as we want service delivery, and we want to reward our loyalists, which is okay. I'm not saying it's a huge harm, because even if another governor could have won, it could have gone the same way. But as much as you have loyalists and you need to reward them, look among your loyalists who is qualified for that job. It doesn't matter. Look among your loyalists who is qualified.
And the one who is not qualified.
Who is not qualified, give him another role, because also you don't need to forget your friends, because you reach there maybe because of them. But now you need to see, do you compromise service delivery with trying to become rewarding loyalty? It cannot work, because at the end of the day, it's not about re-election. It is about serving the people, because I believe all the leaders who took the seats, they didn't take all these seats. Maybe some of them took it out of selfish gains, but I believe most of them took it out of trying to help the lives and the people of Nakuru County to move from where they are to another level. Yes. You must have that interest, because they could have gone and vied in another area. And I believe 90% of them, they were born in Nakuru County. So I believe that they have the interest of the people at heart. So even if it comes to appointment, choose people who are qualified for that, and also let them sign contracts. If they don't deliver,
you
push them out.
Swap them.
Yes, swap them. So what I'm saying is that even to the governor, yes, she can still work with the people she has appointed, but she needs to give them performance contracts. That is, if the fears that the public have about those appointees that they're not going to deliver, let them have service contracts, performance contracts. If they don't deliver, maybe in 1.5 years or 2 years, let her do away with them, put other people. And also let me encourage her that the political season is over. She can work with all the diverse skills, be it even if you're in another political affiliation, because now there are no political affiliations now. You can work with everybody, but don't be constrained to working with the people within your political affiliation, because you can find you don't have an expert, and that expert is in another political party. What are you going to do? So, because what we want is to make Nakuru great.
Yes, and we need to thank the institutions that are working very hard to ensure that what has been done can be reverted. So we need to empower the institutions like LSK, even the NGOs, which really deal with issues of governance, and even our courts, to be able to monitor and give us directions on what has been done. For example, if there is a problem with regional balancing, gender balancing, you know, maybe one region gets extra than other regions. And as he was saying, that we must understand we are in one country right now. So anything that is being done should have the national picture. So we need to empower the institutions that really monitor the government operations.
Yeah, that's very correct. And Daktari, now putting into consideration the role of maybe the principal secretaries in terms of actually helping the development agenda of the country, and looking now at this particular issue where the court has already stopped the vetting, how much maybe are we going to lose our as we speak we can actually even say that the government is well constituted and maybe it's not affecting us as such.
Yes, we are losing a lot of money, county-wise and even nationally, without having these offices being occupied. Because remember, we need service delivery. Remember, most of these services have been devolved. We need people to sign. The chief officers are the ones who are signing, the money being released and those things. We have people who are waiting to be employed by the county as casuals. They cannot because it only happens after the CECs, CEOs have been appointed. There are so many things that are going to stop nationally and even county-wise. That's why I'm saying we need to have a sober mind in solving this problem. And I think one way, as I said it earlier, is let all these court cases that we have to people have an outside kind of settlement and understand each other. Because, yes, we need to have this national outlook. I saw the appointments that were being done in other counties, even in Mandera. You find 90% or 99% of them, they are from Mandera. You see that. Yes, I know Nakuru is a cosmopolitan, but as much as we are doing that, for me, what I usually say is that we are all Kenyans. For me, I don't mind about what tribe you're coming from. The only thing is that as long as you're able to deliver on that service, it doesn't matter. Even if you're a Luo, a Kisii, or somebody, even if the appointments that were made in Nakuru County by the governor, Madam Susan Kihika, if they were made that all the 10 were coming from maybe a Luo family, a Kisii, it doesn't matter as long as they met the threshold and they went through the interview and they passed.
Are you saying, Daktari, the question of regional balance is not that weighty? It should not really be...
For me, I usually say regional balance should not be a big issue. It should be the issue of service delivery. You can be talking about regional balance. We want somebody to go into the docket of agriculture. And we want regional balance here. Maybe you're a Luo, I'm a Kisii, you're a Kalenjin. But you see, among us, I'm the only one who is an agriculturalist. So you cannot talk about regional balance, and when it comes to the qualification aspect, you are more qualified than me. So you see, regional balance, as much as we're talking about, I believe everybody had the same competing standard. If you are qualified, you are qualified. It doesn't, because when you talk about regional balance, now you start looking for people who are qualified among the unqualified.
What about the tribes? Leave alone the regional balance.
Yes,
now,
even the tribes. That's what I'm saying. Be it regional, be it tribes, let's do away with that. Because it's about qualification. If you are qualified, if you went to an interview and you got 99% and I got 92%, and then you say, no, because you are Kikuyu, you had 92 and this area, we have very few Kikuyus, you're going to get the job. You see, it doesn't work. It's about performance. The tribe will not perform. Your tribe will not perform, because I believe the two national languages that we have in Kenya is English and Kiswahili. Yes. So I don't know where the regional balance comes in and the tribal balance comes in. Anybody is able to occupy any seat in Kenya. You can go even to Turkana and actually vie for a seat in CC or CO. If you fail, it's okay. But now people are changing and making things become more tribal. Yes. We are going back to our tribal cocoons and making our thinking to be village kind of thinking. We want this tribe, we want this tribe. We want service delivery. Our issue is service delivery.
The law does not necessarily say that if we are chosen and you are from this tribe, you're only supposed maybe to benefit that.
If you are qualified, if you are qualified. If you have 10 people who are qualified and they're coming from the same tribe, well and good. They are qualified for it. Because what we want is service delivery. Even if that person is coming from your tribe, it is illegal for them to speak to you in your mother tongue in the office, in the working office. It's not supposed to be. There are only two official languages you can communicate with in any working offices or public offices are English and Swahili. So if they are qualified, it's okay. The only problem I have with the governor is only if the people who are nominated or who are given these appointments, they are not qualified. But if they are qualified, there is no issue. It doesn't matter if they are Kikuyus, they are Luos or Kisis. But if they are not qualified, that becomes a problem, because you cannot expect a blind person to lead a person who sees. That's what I usually say. You cannot have that. Both of you will fall into a pit. That's what I'm saying. We need to have merit on the table. Let merit be the judgment. of it and service delivery.
Wow, let merit be the most critical issue, and I think on that particular point we want to bring it to an end for today. Thank you so much, Dr. Kinyanjui Koimbori, an expert in matters agriculture and also climate change, and you've really enlightened our viewer today on matters climate and agriculture.
Thank you so much.
We are really grateful for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think, Paul Kagi, we can bring it to a close at this particular point.
Yes, want to thank you so very much for finding time to be together with us in today's program, the Mid-Morning Park. And we thank you even for following us on our social media accounts. And thank you so very much even for the questions that you have given us this morning. And this week, we are also looking forward for several issues. The high debate on GMO and maize imports is going to ignite a lot of heat in the country this week. And also we are expecting, according to the papers today, the new school fees is on the way coming. Impeachment and threat for trade CS, Moses Kuria, is also being in the talk in the parliament.
Sure.
And also World Cup, my friends, started picking.
And by the way, talking about World Cup, which is your team, Kagi?
I'm yet to decide.
You can pick Harambee Stars.
True. Yes, and finally, we know there's an issue there in Meru County, whereby MCAs have threatened to impeach Governor Mwangaza. Thank you for being together with us. My name is Paul Kagi.
Thank you so much, and on behalf of the entire crew that has made today's program a success, we want to wish you a blessed afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. My name is Mangicho Mona.